Guys, it is a nice hot day here in South Carolina, and we've got a brand new customer and a brand new car to look at. This is a 2011 Outback 2.5i Limited, and customer concern is CVT issues. So the customer had their neighbor replace the valve body in this 2011 TR690, and they weren't able to do an adaptive clear nor do a CVT relearn process. So their AT oil light has been flashing for the last little bit. So what we're gonna do today is do a general overall inspection of this car because it's a new customer. We've never seen the car before, just to give them a general bill of health on what might be wrong with it other than their concern, and then we're gonna tackle that CVT concern, hopefully just by doing a CVT learn process. So with that said, let's go ahead and get on this car and get that CVT concern knocked out. So guys, as I said in the intro, this is a 2011 2.5i Limited Outback. This is the first time seeing this car. This is a brand new customer to me. They reached out via email. Luckily, they live very close to me here in South Carolina, and the stars aligned to take this car in. So what we have is a concern with the CVT. As I said, the neighbor of this customer replaced the valve body, but they were not able to do a relearn process or clear the adaptives correctly because they did not have a scan tool capable of doing that. So we're gonna dive in that a little bit later, but as a courtesy to this customer, we're gonna do a full inspection front to back and let them know of any issues he might have going on. Now, I've already pulled off the air intake snorkel, looked in the air box. The air filter looks fairly new, not really concerned about that. Our serpentine belt here looks very new, as well as a Subaru genuine belt, as we see right here. Our coolant is a little bit low. Already inspected that. We are a little bit low, as you see down there, so we'll be topping that up for the customer and making note of that. As far as anything else top side of the engine, everything looks very clean and very dry. We don't see any oil leaks or anything around our cam covers or rocker cover gaskets or anything up here. Pulled the intake. One thing I noted was that the intake duct here was not fully seated up to the flange. It was pushed back, but the clamp was tight, so there shouldn't have been any air leaks there, any issues there. Also, both our clips up here for the airbox silencer were missing. Now, we pulled this off so we can get a look at the throttle body, and I cannot figure out where I placed my mirror right now, but the throttle body is dirty, and I do recommend a throttle body cleaning. Customer also complained of hesitation coming to a stop, being that this is a lower mileage 2011 TR690. We know that there is a common failure point on these torque converters for the torque converter clutch failing to disengage coming to a stop, causing engine stalling. Likely that is the very first signs of that issue. So we already told the customer that, informed them of that issue, so they know that likely before too long we will be dropping this CVT or pulling the engine to do a torque converter replacement. Now, personally, I like to pull the engine because I can pull an engine in 30 minutes in these cars. And because the mounts, the engine mounts and all, are on the transmission on the CVT, as you see, the mount hooks to the transmission and the engine kind of hovers between the transmission and this front mount down here on the last of the EJs. So it's much easier for me to pop that engine out, pull the converter out, pop the new converter seal and converter in there, and just bolt it all back together that way. And with the mileage and all, he's probably overdue for a coolant service anyway, so we'll go ahead and knock that out. And we're going to take off our timing belt covers and check the health of the timing belt. And I did not ask them if they've already had the timing belt service done or not. If they haven't, it is way overdue and needs to be done. But if 150,000 miles, I assume it's already been done. Now, other things under the hood, this power steering fluid looks old and looks dirty. I would advise a power steering fluid replacement sometime soon. As far as the PCV valve and hose, this hose is hard, it's brittle, it needs to be replaced. The valve's probably never been replaced because with these, they have those click clamps on them. So I will be advising a PCV valve and PCV hose for this car, along with that throttle body cleaning, idle relearn. But other than that, I don't really see anything topside until we get in there and look at the timing belt. As far as our brake fluid is concerned, it is still fairly clear and in good condition, so we are good there. But again, nothing else looks conspicuous up here on the top side, unless we pull out an ignition coil and check for spark plug tube seals, leaking oil, which would be a common issue. But we're going to get underneath and see if the rocker cover gaskets are leaking underneath, which if they're leaking underneath, we're going to be putting spark plug tube seals on this later anyway, so not a huge concern there. If there's no misfire issue, it's not really worth poking around in there just yet, but we'll get under there and see if it's leaking externally, and if it is, it's likely leaking into the spark plug tubes as well. And as always, doing that little extra mile for my customers, put 2 brand new pop pins in there because those were missing, and we topped up their coolant. So let's get under the engine and see if we find any more issues or concerns. So one thing that sucks about working alone is sometimes you need an extra set of hands or an extra set of eyes. So I'm gonna have to do this and then review the footage. But we did the shake test on the driver's side. Everything was good. We're on the passenger side now, and I do feel some movement. I'm not sure if it's in the outer or the inner tie rod, but I definitely feel some movement. So hopefully it'll come through on the video of the movement in the outer joint. If not, then maybe I can look through the wheel here and see if I can make out the inner joint being the one that's moving. So guys, looking from the video footage, it looks like the issue was the inner tie rod having a little bit of play in it, but again, hard to tell without being able to put eyes on it while shaking. We're under the engine now, and everything looks nice and dry on our passenger side. Our cam cover gasket, our head gasket, all bone dry over here. A little bit of oil on the oil filter, but looks like that just might be some seepage from the filter gasket. Not seeing anything really looking like head gasket leaking down there. But we do have quite a concern here as we see a lot of oil on the lower oil pan and the upper oil pan. So likely that is a rear main seal leak or an air oil separator plate leak on the back of the engine block and running down, but it's hard to tell with the amount of oil here and the way it is scattered all around. We'd really need to clean all this off and put some dye in the oil to really track it down. We got some oil leakage here that looks like it's possibly from the head gasket externally leaking, but again, it's all down the front of the engine around that front mount. That could be a crank seal, that could be oil pump leakage. Really hard to tell. Just a lot of oil over here around that upper pan, the lower pan, possibly the rear main, and maybe this driver's side head gasket in that corner there. But otherwise, everything's dry on the engine. Just whatever's going on with this oil leakage, whatever the source is, we will note that and move along in the inspection. So check this ball joint on the driver's side with a pry bar. There wasn't any movement in it, but the boot is clearly burst and there is grease leakage. So would advise replacing that sooner than later, because as soon as all that grease gets washed out of there, that joint will fail in short order. And as per usual for this generation of Outback, we see torn lower control arm bushings. We'll advise the replacement of those as well. As far as our brakes are concerned, looks like we got 4 brand new rotors and 4 sets of new pads, so no issues there. Tires are a little bit worn on the tread side, a little bit of dry rot starting in the sidewall. Looking for the DOT stamp on these to decide how old they are, and not really standing on these tires, so I'd have to ask the customer if they know how old the tires are when they were last replaced. So already seeing an issue here with the tires. We have a mismatched set. We've got a matching pair on the front, and we got a matching pair on the rear. But as you know, you cannot mismatch tires on a Subaru, especially since these are much newer and have much more tread depth. They are dry rotted though. And Michelin Defenders, my favorite tire. And these are, let's see, 2017s, week 6 2017. These are past life expectancy, and that dry rot's not good. I would advise a matching set of brand new tires for this Outback to limit any kind of issues with the all-wheel drive. So on to the rear of the car. We're going to skip over the transmission for the moment because that is what we're after, so we'll leave it for last. Everything looks fairly good under here given the age and mileage. This car, I believe, was originally from Virginia, so it does have a little bit more rust than a South Carolina car. No real leakage from the axle seals nor the rear differential, and everything looks good and tight in the suspension. We do have an issue back here where the back bumper has been rolled and these mounts have been crushed up. So I'm going to bend them out and throw a couple bumper clips in here and fix that for the customer while I'm under here. And then we'll go look at that TR690. All right, and got that dent there popped out of the bumper and got new bumper clips installed where that's no longer flopping under the car for them. All right, now on to the star of the show, the TR690. Now the customer did say that the neighbor broke off a bolt. As we see right here, we got a broken bolt. We also see that there is leakage because of that broken bolt, so we will note that. We won't be messing with it today. I would have liked to drill it out, helicoil it, term cert it, put a new bolt in, but it's already been sealed, so we'd have to pull the whole pan off, reseal everything again to get that to seal properly with that new bolt. Just putting a bolt in there is not going to cause that to seal back up. Now that it's leaking, it's going to leak. So what we're going to do is hook the scan tool up, run the car, check the CVT fluid temperature, make sure with the accurate or the correct temperature to check the fluid level, make sure we are topped up correctly just to make sure we're not overfilled or underfilled. And then we'll try to run the learn process, hopefully alleviating our concern of the flashing AT oil light. But if not, we'll scan codes if there's codes and see if there's something wrong where we have to go inside here. Hopefully we don't have to go in here and mess with this valve body. Hopefully they did do it correctly, but you never know. So that's what we're gonna do now. All right, let's go through a quick scan with the top Don Phoenix Max. See if we got any codes before we start on this CVT learn process and checking the fluid level. So far looking good. No codes thus far. We'll see what the ECM, we'll see what the TCM says. Oh, looks like we're coming up good. So it looks like we might just be able to get away with doing that learn process and checking the fluid and sending them down the road and giving them that vehicle report on what we found so far. Still need to pull that time belt cover and take a look in there. So far looking really good. Green is what we want to see, green and gray. Go ahead and let this complete and I'll bring you back. All right, so our scan completed and we have no codes whatsoever in the entire vehicle. Diagnostic plan, no DTCs. So we're right on the edge of the temperature. Let's jump under there and check our fluid level and let it cool down to do the learn. All right, guys, so our fluid was a little bit low, maybe half a quart to a quart. So we're gonna go through and get this done. Where is clear adaptives on this? It's been a while since I've done one on the top Don. Maybe it's just AT learning mode. Turn off all the things, lift vehicle up, park and brake on. Park and brake is on. Turn the ignition switch off. Start engine. Fully pressed cable, pedal. Once engine stabilized, move to D. Release brake pedal. Push brake pedal. Go to reverse. Forgot these early TR690s Relearn is a little bit different than the later 690s and 580s. Hey, AT learning ended normally, and let's see if our AT temp light is gone. And it is. So it looks like we're all good here. We're gonna go ahead and get it off the jack stands and go ahead and do a test drive. And we'll get those time belt covers off, and this should be ready to go and await the customer decision on the issues we found. All right, guys, so got the timing cover off. Looks like the time belt was replaced not too long ago, but I stuck the Milwaukee borescope down in there and tried to fish it that way, and I did see some oil. So perhaps they replaced the crank seal and messed that up, or the oil pump is leaking, and that's where some of that is coming down the front side of that engine, around that engine mount, and maybe it's blowing back. But that at the back of the engine is definitely got to be the rear main seal, upper oil pan, air oil separator plate, or the piston pin access cover O-ring. So definitely going to have to pull this engine at some point and do some resealing on the bottom end for that oil leak, and possibly head gasket over here. Wasn't too sure on that. We have to clean all that up and see. CVT Learn went through, worked perfectly. We were a little bit low on our CVT fluid, but that's all good now. We'll be getting it down on the ground and doing a test drive just to see if I hear a wheel bearing issue or anything like that. But otherwise, pretty good bill of health on this 2011 Outback. Just some maintenance stuff to catch up on, you know, PCV valve, hose, all that kind of stuff. I'll check their cabin air filter and things like that, but otherwise looking pretty good. Would advise that set of tires just to have a matching set front to back. And otherwise, you know, pretty sure it's got another easy 150,000 miles in it. So guys, with that said, thank you so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed the video. I'll see you all in the next one.